I was still wearing blood-stained hospital shoes when I ran into the courthouse and saw my fiancé holding my cousin's hand. Not my hand, hers. My hair was coming loose from the knot I had twisted together in the hospital locker room. My makeup was gone. My wedding dress was still hanging in the garment bag in the back seat of my car because I had never made it home to change. I had a strip of surgical tape wrapped around my wrist where an IV line had scraped me during the emergency, and I could still smell antiseptic on my skin. The courthouse hallway was too bright, too quiet, too normal for a woman whose life had just split open. I pushed through the ceremony room doors, breathless, still in navy scrubs, and saw the guests turn. My mother stood near the back wall with both hands over her mouth. My Aunt Regina was crying. My best friend from residency looked like she wanted to run to me, but could not make her feet move. And at the front of the room, beside the man I was supposed to marry, stood my cousin, Vanessa. Vanessa was wearing ivory. She was holding white roses. My white roses, the bouquet I had ordered 6 weeks earlier and paid extra to have wrapped in my grandmother's blue ribbon. The judge was closing his folder. The witness sheet was already signed. Ethan, my fiancé, stared at me with the face of a man who had rehearsed being betrayed and then discovered the real betrayal had walked in wearing scrubs. His mother, Diane, stepped in front of me before I could speak. She smiled, not with pity, with victory. "You're too late, Dr. Perfect," she said. Ethan needed a wife who actually showed up. For 1 second, nobody breathed. I looked at Ethan. He did not move toward me. He did not say my name. He did not ask if the little girl was alive. He just looked down at Vanessa's hand in his and whispered, "Mara, don't make this uglier than it has to be. My name is Dr. Mara Ellison." That morning, I had saved a 6-year-old girl from bleeding to death after a school bus crash. And apparently, while I was fighting for her life, the man I loved decided my absence was permission to marry my cousin. I turned toward the exit, because if I stayed 1 more second, I thought grief might turn into something I could not control. Then I saw a man standing in the doorway. He was tall, still wearing the gray suit jacket he had thrown over a wrinkled hospital shirt. His eyes were red from crying, and in his hand was a red folder with the seal of the county attorney's office on the front. I recognized him immediately. His name was Daniel Reyes. 3 hours earlier, he had been standing outside operating room 14, begging me to save his daughter. Now he was standing in the courthouse doorway, looking past me at Ethan and Vanessa. And the expression on his face told me one thing. He had not come to thank me. He had come to expose them. But to understand why that red folder destroyed the wedding they stole from me, you need to understand the year that came before it. I am a pediatric trauma surgeon at St. Catherine's Children's Hospital in Portland, Oregon. I did not become a surgeon because I wanted respect or money or a title before my name. I became one because when I was 11 years old, my younger brother choked on a grape at a family picnic, and the woman who saved him seemed like the most powerful person in the world. She was not loud. She did not panic. She did not beg the world to be fair. She simply knew what to do. From that day forward, I wanted hands like hers. Useful hands, steady hands. Hands people trusted when there was no more time to pray before acting. Medical school took everything from me before it gave anything back. Sleep, money, relationships, birthdays, holidays, normal meals, normal weekends, normal conversations where people asked, "How are you?" and expected an answer shorter than a medical chart. By 33, I had a career I was proud of, an apartment full of plants I regularly forgot to water, and a family that described me as successful in public and unavailable in private. Then I met Ethan Cole. Ethan was not a doctor. He ran donor relations for a private education foundation, which meant he was polished enough to speak in ballrooms and patient enough to listen to rich people talk about legacy. We met at a fundraiser for St. Catherine's pediatric wing. I had just finished a brutal shift and was standing near a silent auction table, trying to decide whether it was socially acceptable to eat 3 mini sandwiches without making conversation. Ethan walked up holding a plate. I guessed turkey, cucumber, and whatever that little square thing is. he said. You look like someone who needs food more than networking. I laughed. That was his gift. He noticed the practical thing, not the obvious thing. He did not open with, "So you're a surgeon?" Or "That must be stressful." Or "I could never do what you do." He handed me a plate and let me be hungry. I loved him for that before I knew better. We dated for 10 months before he proposed. At first, he seemed proud of my work. When I was called in during dinner, he packed my leftovers. When I slept through movies, he covered me with a blanket. When I cried after losing a patient, he sat on the bathroom floor beside me and said nothing, which was exactly the right thing. My mother adored him. My friends liked him. My cousin Vanessa loved him. That should have bothered me sooner. Vanessa grew up more like a sister than a cousin. Our mothers were sisters, and after her parents divorced, Vanessa spent nearly every weekend at our house. She borrowed my clothes, slept in my room, knew all my embarrassing childhood stories, and called my mother Aunt Janice, even though everyone knew she wanted Janice to be her mother too. I loved Vanessa. That is why I missed the signs. When Ethan and Vanessa started texting about wedding logistics, I was relieved. When Vanessa offered to help choose flowers, I was grateful. When Ethan's mother Diane said Vanessa had a natural warmth Mara doesn't always have, I swallowed the insult because Vanessa laughed and said, "Auntie Diane, Mara saves children. I think she's warm enough." I thought she was defending me. Looking back, maybe she was auditioning. Diane never liked me. She liked the title, doctor. She liked telling people her son was marrying a pediatric trauma surgeon. But she did not like the reality, the late nights, the canceled brunches, the hospital calls. The way I could leave a dinner mid-sentence if a child arrived in critical condition. Diane believed a wife should be available. Present. Soft. Decorative when needed. Supportive always. She once told me, a woman can have an important job and still remember her husband is her real life. I said, a child bleeding internally is also real life. She smiled. Yes, dear, that's exactly what worries me. Ethan always brushed it off. She's from another generation. She wants us to be happy. She just doesn't understand the hospital. But he understood less than I thought. The first real warning came 3 months before the wedding. I had been on call for 36 hours. I came home to find Ethan and Vanessa at my kitchen table, with a laptop open, wedding spreadsheets everywhere, and a bottle of wine between them. Vanessa was wearing my old college sweatshirt. Ethan was laughing at something on her phone. The scene was small, domestic. Too easy. I stood in the doorway, and for 1 second, neither of them noticed me. When Ethan finally looked up, he smiled too quickly. You're home. Vanessa jumped up. We were just finalizing the courthouse guest list. I looked at the laptop. My name was at the top of a document titled Ceremony Backup Plan. Backup plan? I asked. Ethan closed the laptop. It's nothing. Just timing. You know, in case the hospital traps you. Traps me. Not in case a child needs emergency surgery. Not in case someone almost dies. In case the hospital traps you. I should have asked more. Instead, I took a shower, cried quietly, and told myself exhaustion was making me suspicious. 2 weeks later, Ethan asked me to sign a document from his foundation. It's just a conflict disclosure, he said, because a few hospital donors are coming to the wedding dinner. I was post-call, sitting at the kitchen counter with wet hair and a headache. He slid the tablet toward me, already open to the signature box. I said, "Can I read it later?" He kissed the top of my head. It's standard. If we don't submit it today, Diane will panic about the venue contract. I signed. That signature would become important later. At the time, it was just another small moment where I trusted the man I planned to marry. The week before the wedding, everything became tense. Ethan kept asking, "You're sure you're not on call Friday?" I said, "I'm not scheduled, but emergencies don't care about schedules." He hated that answer. Diane hated it more. At the rehearsal dinner, she raised her glass and said, "To Ethan and Mara, may their marriage be blessed with fewer interruptions than their engagement." People laughed politely. Vanessa squeezed my hand under the table. I thought it was comfort. Now I think it was pity. On the morning of the wedding, I woke at 4:36 to my phone ringing. The hospital school bus collision on Interstate 84. Multiple pediatric traumas. All available surgeons needed. For 1 second, I stared at the ceiling. Then training took over. I called Ethan while pulling on scrubs. His voice was thick with sleep. "No," he said. "Ethan, there are children coming in. It's our wedding day." "I know. You promised." "I promised to marry you. I never promised children wouldn't get hurt before 2 o'clock." Silence. Then he said, "How long?" "I don't know. That's not good enough." I stopped with one shoe in my hand. "Ethan." He exhaled. "Just be there by noon. The ceremony is at 2, but Mom wants photos. I'll do everything I can." "Don't say that. Say you'll be there." I closed my eyes. "I'll be there." I meant it. I really did. At St. Catherine's, the emergency bay looked like controlled chaos. Children crying, parents shouting, nurses moving faster than language, paramedics calling vitals, blood on blankets, tiny shoes on gurneys. The kind of mourning that burns into you forever. Then I saw Lily Reyes, 6 years old, brown curls matted with blood, unconscious, abdominal trauma, dropping pressure. Her father, Daniel Reyes, was in the hallway with blood on his shirt that was not his. He grabbed my sleeve before security gently pulled him back. "Please," he said. "She's my only child. There are sentences you do not forget. Not because they are poetic, because they are pure." I told him, "I'm going to do everything I can." Then I went into the operating room. The surgery should have taken 90 minutes. It took 4 hours. Lily had a splenic rupture, bowel injury, and internal bleeding that kept hiding from us. Twice, her pressure crashed. Once, anesthesia called out numbers, so low the room seemed to tighten around them. I remember asking for suction. I remember my resident's voice shaking. I remember looking at the clock once, and then forcing myself not to look again. There are no weddings when a child is open on your table. There is only the next clamp, the next suture, the next decision. At 1:12 p.m., Lily stabilized. At 1:37, I closed. At 1:46, I walked into the family room and told Daniel Reyes his daughter had survived. He folded in half like his bones had dissolved. I let him cry for exactly as long as he needed. Then I ran. My phone had 27 missed calls. Ethan. My mother, this Vanessa Diane. I called Ethan. No answer. I called Vanessa. No answer, sir. I texted. Lily survived. Surgery ran long. I'm leaving now. Please wait. I love you. The message showed delivered, not read. I drove like a woman trying to outrun consequence. I kept picturing Ethan standing at the courthouse, worried, angry maybe, but there. I imagined explaining. I imagined him taking one look at me in scrubs and understanding. Instead, I arrived and found him married to Vanessa. Diane told me to get out, and Daniel Reyes stood in the doorway with a red folder. He stepped forward slowly. "Mara," he said. The whole room turned toward him. I barely found my voice. "Mr. Reyes?" He looked from me to Ethan, then to Vanessa in the ivory dress. His jaw tightened. "I came to find you because the hospital said you left for your wedding. I wanted to thank you before you disappeared into your new life." Diane scoffed. "This is not the time for hospital drama." Daniel turned his eyes toward her. "Mom, my 6-year-old daughter is alive because of this woman's hospital drama." The room went silent. My mother started crying harder. Ethan looked down. Vanessa clutched the bouquet like it might hold her upright. Then Daniel lifted the red folder. "But that is not the only reason I'm here." Ethan's head snapped up. Daniel opened the folder. "My office has been reviewing a charitable solicitation complaint involving a donor account created under the name Ellison Pediatric Recovery Initiative. My name, my full last name, Ellison." I looked at Ethan. He had gone completely still. Daniel continued. "The account used Dr. Mara Ellison's professional biography, hospital affiliation, and electronic signature to solicit private pledges for a proposed pediatric recovery fund. Approximately $128,000 was pledged. $42,000 was already deposited." The room shifted. Guests looked at one another. Someone whispered, "What?" Diane stepped forward. "That has nothing to do with this ceremony." Daniel looked at her. "Actually, it does. The account administrator is Ethan Cole. The communications director is Vanessa Blake. Vanessa Blake. My cousin, my maid of honor, the woman holding my flowers. My stomach turned to ice. I looked at Ethan. What is he talking about? Ethan raised both hands. Mara, listen to me. It was going to be a surprise. A wedding gift. A fund in your name. Daniel's voice was flat. A fund Dr. Ellison did not authorize. Vanessa whispered. We were going to tell you. I laughed once. It sounded nothing like me. When? Before or after you married my fiancé, the judge, who had been silent until then, stood. I need to clarify what exactly has been signed here. Diane snapped. The marriage certificate is signed. It's done. Daniel removed another page from the folder. The county clerk's office received a request this morning to amend the ceremony time from 2 o'clock to 12:30, claiming Dr. Ellison had approved the change. The request was sent from an email address attached to the Ellison Pediatric Recovery Initiative. I stared at Ethan. He would not look at me. My mother said, Mara did not approve anything. No, Daniel said. She was in emergency surgery at that time. Saving my daughter. The words landed like a verdict. Then he looked at Vanessa. And Ms. Blake, your name appears on the amended witness sheet submitted before Dr. Ellison arrived. Vanessa's lips parted, but no words came out. The room had become something else now, not a wedding, not even a scandal. A public unraveling. Diane tried to laugh. You people are being dramatic. Ethan was abandoned at his own wedding. He made a difficult choice. Daniel turned another page. Mrs. Cole, there is also a recorded voicemail from you to the clerk's office stating, and I quote, if Dr. Ellison is not present by 12:30, proceed with the bride who is present. We cannot let a surgeon's ego ruin my son's future. My Aunt Regina gasped. My mother said, oh my God. I looked at Diane. For the first time since I had known her, she looked afraid, not sorry, afraid, because her own words had entered the room without needing permission. Ethan stepped toward me. Mara, please. This got out of hand. This? My mother pushed the ceremony change. Vanessa was trying to help. Vanessa looked at him sharply. Ethan. There it was, the crack. The beautiful thing about people who lie together is that pressure teaches them to lie separately. Daniel handed the judge a document. Your Honor, I cannot advise on the marriage issue in this room, but the clerk's office and county attorney will need to review whether the time amendment and supporting statements were fraudulent. The judge looked at Ethan and Vanessa. Then I will not be filing this certificate today. Diane made a strangled sound. You can't do that. The judge closed the folder. I can refrain from filing any document I have reason to believe may be connected to false statements. That was the first blow. The marriage they had rushed to steal was not even safely theirs. Then Daniel turned to me. Dr. Ellison, I am sorry to do this here, but since your name and credentials were used, I need to ask on record. Did you authorize Ethan Cole or Vanessa Blake to create, solicit, collect, manage, or promote any fund using your name or hospital position? I looked at Ethan, then at Vanessa, then at Diane. No, I said. I did not. Daniel nodded. That is enough for today. Ethan's face broke. Mara, don't do this. That sentence almost made me smile. Do this as if I had arranged the forged fund, as if I had moved the ceremony, as if I had put Vanessa in ivory, as if I had chosen cruelty and then dared to arrive wearing evidence on my shoes. I stepped closer to him. You married my cousin while I was saving a child. He swallowed. You weren't there. No, I said. I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Vanessa started crying, not quietly, not gracefully. She lowered herself into a chair, still holding my bouquet, and said, I didn't think you'd come. That was the first honest thing she had said all day. The room heard it. I heard my Aunt Regina whisper, Lord have mercy. My mother walked past Diane without looking at her and came to my side. For months, I had wondered whether she would choose peace over truth if my life became embarrassing in public. That day, she took my hand. Diane looked at Ethan. Say something. Ethan looked at me, then at the red folder, then at Vanessa. The man who had always known how to speak suddenly had no language left, so I spoke for him. This wedding is over. Nobody argued, not even Diane. I walked out of the courthouse with my mother on one side. and Daniel Reyes on the other. In the hallway, he stopped. "I'm sorry," he said. I shook my head. "You didn't ruin anything. You just opened the folder." He gave a tired, sad smile. "My daughter woke up 10 minutes ago. She asked if the lady doctor got to be a princess." That nearly broke me. I pressed one hand over my mouth. Then I laughed through tears because grief is strange, and sometimes the sweetest thing in the world arrives at the worst possible moment. "No," I said. "Tell her the lady doctor stayed a doctor." Daniel nodded. "I think she'll like that better." The months that followed were not clean. They were paperwork, interviews, depositions, frozen accounts, hospital ethics meetings, family phone calls I did not answer. Ethan claimed he had created the fund to honor my work and planned to surprise me after the wedding. Vanessa claimed she thought I had approved it and that Ethan told her we had an understanding. Diane claimed everyone had overreacted because I had humiliated her son by being late. Then the emails surfaced. One from Vanessa to Ethan, sent 6 weeks before the wedding. "If Mara finds the donor page, tell her Diane started it. She never has time to read anything fully anyway." Another from Ethan. "Once we're married, it won't matter. Her name will help secure the hospital donors. She'll calm down when she sees the fund is successful." And one from Diane. "If she misses the ceremony, let people see what life with her will be." Vanessa is already more like a wife than Mara. That one hurt more than I expected. Not because Diane's opinion mattered. Because Ethan had not defended me. He had replied with a thumbs up. A thumbs up, 3 years of love, answered by a small blue icon. The Ellison Pediatric Recovery Initiative was shut down. Donors were contacted. The money that had been collected was frozen, then returned or redirected through legitimate hospital channels. Ethan lost his foundation position. Vanessa lost her marketing job when it became clear she had written donor copy using my biography without consent. Diane called me once. I answered because I wanted to hear whether accountability sounded different in her voice. It did not. "You destroyed my son," she said. I stood in my kitchen, still in pajamas, holding coffee I had reheated twice. "No," I said. "I stopped letting him use me. You were late to your own wedding. I was saving a child. You always have an excuse." That was when I understood she would never see me clearly. To Diane, saving a dying child was still an excuse if it interrupted her son. So I ended the call. Vanessa tried harder. She wrote letters, texts, eames. She left flowers at my apartment until my doorman started refusing them. Her first apologies were not apologies. I was confused. Ethan pressured me. "You were never around. I thought you didn't really want him." I deleted all of them. Then, 7 months later, she sent one message through my attorney. "I wanted the life people admired you for, but I didn't want to do the work that made you who you are. I told myself I was taking what you neglected. The truth is, I betrayed you because standing near your life made me feel small. I am sorry." I read it twice. Then I placed it in a drawer. I did not respond. Some apologies are real. That does not make them keys, Lily Reyes recovered. That mattered more than anything else. She spent 3 weeks in the hospital, then went home with a scar, a stuffed giraffe, and a fierce dislike of applesauce. Her father sent updates through the hospital because he was careful about boundaries. The first photo showed her sitting up in bed with a sticker on her cheek. The second showed her walking down the hallway with a physical therapist. The third showed her holding a handmade card. On the front, in purple marker, she had drawn a woman in blue scrubs wearing a crown. Inside, it said, "Thank you for not leaving." I cried for 20 minutes. Then I taped it inside my locker. Not because I needed praise, because I needed to remember the truth when the world tried to make me doubt it. I had not failed by missing the wedding. I had chosen the child. And the people who punished me for that choice exposed themselves more clearly than any accusation could have done. A year later, St. Catherine's held a donor dinner for the new trauma wing. I almost skipped it. Too many memories, too many polished shoes, too many people in expensive clothes using words like legacy and impact while nurses worked double shifts upstairs. But Lily's family was speaking, so I went. Not in white, not in anything bridal. I wore a deep green dress, low heels, and my grandmother's blue ribbon tied around my wrist. My mother came with me. So did Aunt Regina, who had become unexpectedly loyal after the courthouse and had developed a habit of saying exactly whatever everyone else was thinking. When Daniel Reyes stepped to the podium, Lily stood beside him in a pink cardigan. She was missing one front tooth and looked wildly bored by the formal event, perfectly alive. Daniel spoke about the crash, about the hospital, about watching doors close between him and his child. Then he looked toward me. The surgeon who saved my daughter was supposed to get married that afternoon, he said. She stayed anyway. The room turned. I felt heat rise in my face. Daniel continued. Some people call that sacrifice. I call it character. Because character is what you do when nobody in your personal life is making it easy. The applause came slowly at first, then all at once. I did not stand. I could not. My mother squeezed my hand under the table. Aunt Regina leaned over and whispered, "That was better than a wedding." I laughed. For the first time in a year, the memory of that courthouse did not feel like a blade. It felt like a door. One that had closed loudly, yes, but also one that had kept me from entering a life built on theft, resentment, and lies. I still believe in love. I just no longer believe love should require me to apologize for my purpose. I believe in the kind of love that waits when surgery runs long. The kind that understands duty is not abandonment. The kind that does not punish you for being the person it once claimed to admire. Have you ever been punished for doing the right thing? If you have, then you know the loneliness of replaying the moment over and over, wondering if you should have chosen differently, arrived sooner, explained better, loved harder. But sometimes doing the right thing costs you the wrong people. And sometimes losing them is not the tragedies. Sometimes it is the rescue. My name is Dr. Mara Ellison. I was late to my wedding because a little girl needed me more than a man who could not wait. My groom married my cousin while I was in surgery. His mother laughed in my face. My cousin wore my flowers. And the man whose daughter I saved walked into that courthouse with the red folder that exposed every lie they built while I was busy keeping a child alive. People asked me later if I regretted missing the ceremony. I always say no, because if I had arrived on time, I might have married Ethan. If I had married Ethan, I might have spent years mistaking resentment for love. If I had left that operating room, Lily Reyes might not have gone home. So no, I was not late. I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And when I finally reached the courthouse, the truth was waiting for me at the door.